Welcome to T-Smack, home of the T-Smack. May I take your order?
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talking Smack, where we talk superheroes, movies, animation, comics, and much, much more. I'm your host, Josh Scar, and joining me, as always, is the one, the only, the one man who does not know, well, maybe one of two men who does not know that love is a second-hand emotion. And you're still muted, so we didn't get that reaction. So way to go, Alex. You've blown it twice.
Well, I'm sorry for the YouTube algorithm. I can't curse within the first 15 seconds.
There you go. Only if we monetize, which we're not monetized yet.
Soon. I've been watching those numbers creep up.
I'm always so grateful that I have wireless headphones, and I walk away and someone comes into the room and they just start doing whatever. And then I can come back and cheese it up a little bit and be like, oh, that was one way to do something. And I came back and Alex was listening or singing to himself What's Love Got to Do With It by Tina Turner. And Justin came in and joined him, and they got confused because they're like, love is a complicated emotion. And they're like, yeah, that's right. Confirmation bias, complicated emotion, not secondhand emotion. That's dumb. That's weird. But as I alluded to, we are also joined by Justin Henson of the Movie Wire and Back to the Balcony fame. Justin, welcome back.
Always a pleasure. And now I think we need to do a karaoke segment on this because honestly, I was having a blast. And now that you just cleared up the lyrics, we need to go further with it. So next time I'm on, we're doing a karaoke.
Isn't there a whole competition show out there right now about isn't it like Can You Beat Shazam or something like that? Yeah. Or is it just called Shazam?
I think it's just Shazam.
Yeah, it beat Shazam.
Me and Alex got this. We can beat Shazam.
Isn't that the Shaq movie? I think you guys can make a better. No, is that Kazam? Kazam. Everyone has they have a Mandela effect thinking that there is a Sinbad-led movie called Shazam. That's what it is. Oh,
no, that came out. It's been confirmed. Everything. They released some
As
files
if you saw a house guest drunk.
There you go. That was one of those Disney Channel movies that was just on all the damn time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, today we were playing friends and I were playing some board games, and we're playing with their young child there, so we're trying to distract her, and they brought out the Bluey doll for her. And I was like, did you know Bluey has a song? And I shouted whatever wiretap device they have, play Blue by Eiffel 65. Because the only reason I know about that damn song is the Disney Channel played that nonstop that summer it came out. That horrible CGI music video.
I love that music video. I don't care. I have a blue house with a blue window.
Mm-hmm. And it's blue, dabba dee dabba da.
Hey Justin, what color is your shirt?
Shut up. No.
It's a blue shirt with a blue window.
What color is your chair?
Stop. No. That song, I don't know why, it just gets me.
What? Why not?
No.
I think Justin's he's a little too beyond the nostalgia for it. I think you're like 2 years older than Alex, I think.
Wait, you're in the right age range now. Shouldn't you be looking for a blue Corvette?
I hate you so much.
Speaking of hate, we're going to hear from our friends over at the I Hate It, Let's Watch It podcast. We'll be right back.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Dawn.
And if you've ever watched a TV show and thought to yourself, oh my god, that season finale plot twist was absolutely bonkers.
Or seen a movie and thought, wow, I need to talk to somebody about this train wreck immediately.
Then we think you'll fit right in with our podcast, I Hate It, Let's Watch It. We watch TV shows like Riverdale and Emily in Paris.
And movies like Deep Water, Killer Sofa, Rubber, and Deadly Illusions. And we give them the total rinsing they deserve.
It's basically group therapy for movie masochists. So come check us out wherever you stream podcasts.
I think they might have to do a special episode on the opening of this episode because that just went off the rails so fast.
What are you talking about? We're right on topic.
Well, being on topic means we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room, and that is, yes, we're doing a sequel because the last one did pretty well, and we didn't get to touch on everything that we wanted to. So we're back to talk about what the fuck is happening with Hollywood, and we also kind of shot ourselves in the foot because, like, the weekend after we released that episode, box office kind of went back to normal for a bit.
Oh, sure. I mean, I think the real reason we're here to do a sequel is the fact that sequels are saving Hollywood. Therefore, sequels will save this podcast. So we got Inside Out making 1.2 billion already. We got Bad Boys 49. You know, that's way, that overproduced to 50 something million and doing well. A Quiet Day prequel reboot sequel overperformed by like 30%. Deadpool Not 3 is coming soon. Hollywood is saved by sequels, so therefore let's save the podcast with sequels. I see everyone is wearing their new attire. We have upped the budget for this episode from $1.50 to $1.75.
I don't know. My shirt was given to me. I paid nothing for this, so
And you're
I think
welcome.
we're saying that we're just complete sellouts. Way to go.
I've also had this shirt since like 2009. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm just more impressed that the shirt still fits me. I've packed on probably at least 30 pounds since I bought it.
One of the things that I believe is the importance of budgetary expectations, since we're talking about the fact that apparently we cannot afford to buy new clothes. A recent Forbes article came out. Roughly every, if you film in the United Kingdom, you can get some tax credits. And within 24 months of that production being released in theaters, streaming, whatever it is, they have to file all the official tax forms of who was employed, the percentages of money that went to the studios, recouping all that stuff. And so one of the things that came out is Disenchanted. Anyone seen this?
Yes.
My
you
kids saw it.
have.
I didn't. Yeah, I think Justin did a review with Brooklyn on that one.
Yep.
Would you say that movie to a modest? I will say I like Enchanted. It's adorable, but a direct to streaming sequel deserved its budgetary cost of $130 million.
Absolutely not. So, especially the movie showed that there's no way that this was 150 whatever it is budget, because the movie didn't demonstrate anything that shouted big budget.
I mean, how much of that when we talk about budgets, how much of that actually goes into talking about payroll as well, though? Because like you hear budget and you immediately just think the production value. But I mean, you have Idina Menzel, you have Academy Award winner Amy Adams, dear God, I almost spaced on her name, James Marsden, Patrick Dempsey. Those four alone probably cost them close to, if not more than $70 million.
Well, I think this is kind of, and I'm sure, Alex, you do your thing of looking this up, but this is at a point in their careers where they haven't really done a ton of big blockbusters to justify the amount. So I can picture this kind of set of cast maybe getting a paycheck of between 5 to 10 million, if I were to guesstimate, maybe on the generous side. Because especially with Amy Adams, that has done some great independent stuff, but she hasn't really done any big budget blockbusters that really blew her name out of the water when it comes to justifying a big payday. So this one, I think, was, if they were to justify it, and if it is a bigger payroll to justify, hey, we want to do this, come on back, we'll pay anything just to get the same original characters in. But if we're solely basing it off of talent, I can't picture a huge payday for this cast.
One other question, and Alex, maybe you have a better insight into this, is when they talk about budget, that's the lifetime of the production as well, if I'm remembering it correctly, because this has been in some kind of production for probably, it came out in 2007, I think, 2008, the original Enchanted. So if it's been in some kind of production for the last 15 years, or I mean, it would have been like 12, 13 years, all that money put towards it in that buildup still counts towards the budget, even if they were never in any kind of production phase, pre-production phase. Like if it's all just pre-production, that still counts towards the budget, technically speaking. And again, I'm not trying to justify it. I'm just trying to say that there needs to be a particular lens that needs to be viewed through with when we talk about budgets, because I do think that especially nowadays, there's a perception that when we talk budget, that does not include cast cost and director costs and everything like that. It's only what's the production value, what it costs to build sets and the visual effects, and maybe paying for music. I don't even know what people expect out of it, but I do think that there needs to be some kind of acknowledgement that there's way more in a budget than people give credit for.
Yeah, I 100% agree, because even the last episode we had on this topic, we brought up Al Pacino and how much he got paid for doing Jack and Jill. So there is some relevancy to that and it can even branch off to a different topic of, are we paying the actors too much versus the behind the scenes, the writers, the CGI, what contributes, what goes in the majority of the budget. So I think you make a very great point.
When you talk about a movie's final budget, it does not include marketing. It is including the cast, effects, all that stuff. And Josh, you're right. When a movie has been in production as long as Disenchanted was, that does include the screenwriters who brought in the storyboard and all that stuff. Part of the reason why Superman Returns never got a sequel is because part of the budget of that movie was rolling in the budget that was included from the Tim Burton Nick Cage film, and 20 million of that budget was Nick Cage, because he had a pay or play deal, and it never went into production, so they had to pay him the money anyway. But then also Tim Burton also had a pay or play deal. I think his was 5 or 10 million. If the movie went into production, it didn't. And then what starts happening is that different people, screenwriters, they have multiple writing credits, multiple drafts attempts, how close do they get to pre-production. All the production, that famous Nick Cage glowing suit, they paid for all that. That's rolled into the budget, even though it was never used. So you do get this legacy cost added up. Now, part of the streaming issue is that what they're trying to do, because the studios do not wish to pay legacy royalties. Typically, the royalty formula now is that you get if you cut your deal, you get part of the box office, and then you get part of the streaming, part of the DVDs, part of the secondary markets and all that stuff, cable showings and all that. But if it's going straight to streaming, what they're trying to do is they're talking to the actors and they're just paying them up front. They're like, listen, it's a low budget movie. It's straight to streaming. We'll pay you what we think you would earn, just all up front. So that's how you get a budget creeping like Disenchanted of 130. Part of the issue was that they went into reshoots and it ballooned from a budget of about 90 to 130. Which, I mean, I know we're a little older and we're used to the bargain bin of like straight to DVD. Justin, you're now on video cassette, every week on your show. Those movies are normally, you're talking about budgets of 10 to 30 million, and that they're hoping to just recoup in those costs. But streaming is still this unknown enigma, and you're talking 130 million for a legacy. Cool. That's 14 years beyond its shelf date that made around 350, I believe, when it first came out. That is an absurd budget for something that just is poured into the void. And Disney, I think, came out and said that their losses right now for the first 4 years of Disney Plus are around 11 billion. And that is wild.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. One of the things I wanted to talk about that we were talking about too many other good things was the monster that is streaming, because it's kind of an Ouroboros for any streamer that's not Netflix, where that's like their entire business model. Their model is built around streaming and essentially losing money. But we hit a point where HBO was kind of doing pretty well with HBO Max or whatever. HBO Go, I think, is what it was prior to Max. And then CBS got into the game with CBS Plus, or whatever they called it, All Access, which then became Paramount Plus. And everyone just kind of, what feels like everyone, Sony doesn't have their own streamer yet, although they're like trying to buy their way into one now. everyone wants to get into the streaming game because everyone's sitting at home watching streaming and talking about, oh, I watched this on Netflix, I watched that on Netflix. And it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys have heard about what's going on with, not to tangent too far, but like what's going on with emissions from AI generators right now, where emissions are beyond what even like NFTs were doing in terms of pollution and like energy requirements. They're just, and yet companies are still like, AI is the future, even though it's destroying everything. Artistic integrity and the environment, double win. In this case, streaming is kind of like that, where yes, you have your own home platform where you can just put everything and everyone's going to be like, yeah, this, and they don't have to go hunting for anything. But the cost to maintain, the cost to publish, the cost to just do everything that is required of a streaming service, it does feel a little bit like an Ouroboros. It's a snake eating itself. Where does the budget and profit begin? Where the losses start? Like there's no cause and effect, really. I would love to see the correlation between all this, because I mean, yes, we had a pandemic, and as I've admitted to many times in the past, I am a bit of a Disney adult, but you can kind of tell that once Disney Plus started and Disney was hemorrhaging money into their streamer, the quality of life in the Disney parks, at least in the US based parks, just plummeted. They started doing pay for rides, where you can pay to jump the lines, where that used to be free. You just had to be able to time it properly. And then they like just the cheapness of all the products, which, I mean, that's a theme park anyway. They're going to upsell at the cheapest possible opportunity to make it. That's capitalism, baby. But overall, like, I do think that there is a big correlation between Disney's overall quality in terms of the products they're producing, not just physical merchandising, but movies, TV shows, all that. That's not necessarily like Mandalorian, which like that's maybe the exception that proves the rule. But you can see, especially in Disney, like using them as the main example, they start a streaming platform, quality of pretty much everything else goes down the drain because they're focusing so much time and money on maintaining that streaming service. And it goes to that question that people have been having of, are we just in cable 2.0 now? Because now they're even talking about joining.
Streaming is the devil in disguise. It's a double-edged sword, like you said, John. Here's the deal. This is just the origin story of it. This streaming, even though it's huge right now, it is just getting started, because as we see more and more come, we see more and more ads, we see more and more agreements come from these streaming service. And we saw the same thing with Movie Pass at one point, where they go based on gaining the money from not just advertisers, but from customer data. So we're going to get a big stream of that. And as that gets a little bit more tempting and the greed grows, we're going to have a lot of these actors and actresses want to make a name for themselves. And the more that see them in a performance, the more they see a bigger chance to be on theatrical film. So it's a resume builder as well. So there is a lot of elements here to really make this a dangerous element, not only for the theaters staying in business, but it almost reminds me of Batman Forever, where Jim Carrey, the Riddler, puts that idiot box thing on people's heads and they gain all this information. And that's kind of what it's almost feeling like. And I know that's the cynical side of me, but that's kind of the truth to me, is me as I review movies. To me, I'm like, this is glorious. So we have this opportunity for a lot of these artistic pieces to come to ease of access. And as we started streaming, we got a lot of independent films, and now it's slowly evolving into complete garbage, generic. We did a review, Josh, of God, what was it?
Ghosted.
And it has the same tone, the same formula as every other comedic rom-com that comes to streaming. This is where it becomes very generic, where people are falling for this concept, and we're just expecting these big names to drive it, so it feels like something different. And that's where it really does drive me crazy to a point, is that we did have this great opportunity to introduce this new way to have artists tell their story, and then we're going as quickly as we finish our sentences to the point of just being generic. And that's kind of where we see the danger in this. It's becoming a culture or an opportunity of culture to improve our culture to just being apparent greed.
I think you guys are onto something, because how quickly has Netflix and Disney Plus immediately announced after the first week that some movie they released is getting a sequel, and it's just never emerged. Bright 2 was supposed to come out years ago. That's never. Cruella 2 was announced, and nothing has come of that, because they're seeing that the first weekend look of like, oh, okay, what is this? Does not equate to a long-standing return, which is what they expect. They're trying to build these services of repeat viewerships, and Netflix has been releasing now and then a little bit more about how their algorithm works and stuff. And they straight up have admitted that like something like 55 or 60% of their top view of their content is just their top 10. Once you get below the top 10, they've admitted that there's stuff on there that has had one stream in an entire year. When you have 150 plus million people and you have a show or movie that literally gets one stream, so it's just taking up space on some dusty server in some random closet in some protected space, that is really terrifying to think about, especially when you have Disney and Max who have basically try to cut their losses by just evaporating content like it never existed. I loved The World According to Jeff Goldblum, and they hit the nuke button on that and dumped that, and not even, especially since it was like co-broadcast by National Geographic. They could air that on the Geographic channel. They could keep that on the content on the Geographic portion of Disney Plus or Hulu, and instead they just eject it because, well, we paid all this money and it didn't work. And now it truly is becoming a churn and burn experience. And these streaming things are not content we can actually physically buy and protect and hold, because Netflix rarely releases anything on DVD and Blu-ray. Lord knows Disney hasn't announced, unless I'm wrong, that they've announced Mando season 1 coming in 4K.
Those are on Steelbook. Those are available on Blu-ray and 4K in Steelbook form.
They are.
I bought Mando season. No, I couldn't find Mando season 1. I bought Andor season 1 and Falcon and the Winter Soldier season 1. I was hoping to get Obi-Wan, but my Walmart ran out of those.
Oh, so wait, so they're not available? They're just like limited pressings?
You can buy them on Amazon. I think the Blu-rays are like $45, and then the 4Ks I think are like $60.
Okay, let me try something that probably doesn't exist. Oh, what is that Bette Midler Wicked Hocus Pocus 2? Can I pick that up? Is that on Blu-ray?
No, that's because it's one of the few hooks that they have to try and get people in to watch it.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I don't like the idea that media is becoming, movies in general are becoming a content churn factory. I know it's always been that way. There's just hokey movies. I guess we've talked about the bargain bin. The bargain bin. Red Letter Media is famous for doing their stuff like their Black Label and The Best of the Worst for these horrible things. But when you have good actors, Bette Midler, Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, you have Gal Gadot and The Rock making movies that are just to be dumped for a paycheck, that's just kind of scary.
Well, if you remember, I mean, even with Disney, because the overlaying topic, you see Disney doing this, because we had the Disney Vault with VHS that get released every, 10 years, was it? So that's the hook of going on a big rush to view or to purchase. So now, whether others are going to follow that when it comes to streaming form, that's going to be the other question. Because what we do see is a lot of these exclusives on streaming taking longer and longer to really come up. So it's a valid point that, you know what, if you see a good or decent movie that hits streaming, you're going to see that a year down the road ready to purchase. For those that kind of flopped, you're going to see that kind of turn within the first month or so to purchase to kind of make up that revenue. So to me, Disney is going to pull that card of doing a version of the Disney Vault with streaming movies. And that's going to be kind of their hook to separate their revenue into a 5-year plan per se. But that is whether or not I think they're going to set the standard. As cynical as that's going to be for me to say, they are going to set the standard to what other companies are going to do when it comes to their streaming exclusive movies. And I'll be curious to see what it looks like, not in the next few years, but in the next year, because that's how long it's going to take for companies to really, at this point, figure out how they're going to make up the back end revenue on a lot of these movies that do exclusively go on their streaming platforms.
And Alex, just because you brought it up, I completely forgot that Cruella had a theatrical release.
Mm-hmm.
It made $233.5 million in the global box office. It released May 26, 2021. I could have swore that was a Disney Plus exclusive, but I mean, 2021 was like a decade ago. So, I mean, I'm lucky I remember that movie came out.
It was a Disney Plus Premier Access thing where you could pay like $40 to see it at home that week that it came out, kind of thing. Because that was still in the height of the pandemic offerings.
Yeah, because Black Widow, I think, would have come out that previous May, and they did the Premier Access. Yeah. But yeah, when you brought up Cruella and you said that they were working on, or like there were rumors that a Cruella 2 was in the works, I just immediately went, but they shit on all the Pixar stuff they just dumped on Disney Plus. How are they even considering a Cruella 2? But it made $233 million in the middle of a pandemic. So I guess that's somewhat justifiable, but there's no way they can afford Emma Stone at this point unless she just really loves the character.
She's a prestige actor now. They can't afford her.
Well, it did get acknowledgement for being nominated for an Academy Award as well.
Cruella. Oh, well, yeah, I get costume design, I would assume.
Yep.
Costume. I could see costume or production design. Definitely costume. Like that. That's almost like they were just showing their hand with the concept of the movie. Like, oh, she's a fashion designer. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, Academy.
So I have a question for you guys. For a long time in Hollywood, it was known that direct-to-TV, if you many actors didn't want to do TV. Famously, 10 years ago, when the Insurgent, Divergent, Insurrection movies, the third one basically failed, and they wanted to do the fourth one, but they were going to go try to make a TV movie out of it. The lead actor went, I don't do TV. And a lot of people were basically like, if I'm a movie actor, you don't do TV. Now it's changing a bit because they don't have the 24 episodes per season as much. They can do prestige TV, 4 to 8 episode limited run. And a lot of their, I've seen promotions talk about like their first TV role kind of thing, announcing that. Do you feel that these actors are hurting their own brand by doing this? Because
I think Shailene Woodley is definitely hurting her own brand. Like, I mean, honestly, who is she to be like, TV is below me? She was Mary Jane that got cut out of the movie because her storyline made no sense in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Well, the reason why I bring it up is because there is this weird dynamic in the last like 2 or 3 years where actors they're not even trying to do K-fob anymore. That WWE wrestler thing where you put on a persona for a while. They'll talk up a movie. Oh yeah, I loved it for A, B, C, and D. The movie disappears. Their next thing they're promoting, someone brings up that last thing. You're like, oh yeah, that was a garbage thing. Sydney Sweeney famously did that, saying, oh yeah, I took Madam Web because I want to get in with Sony because I want to do Barbarella. There's a few other actors who have done similar things where they just completely dump on. Doesn't that break? To you, does that break your relationship with that actor? If you know that whatever they're pimping right now, you spend your $10, $20 at the movie theater or your 3 hours on the sofa to watch it while getting up and doing other stuff, and they just completely, and they're going to be trying to hawk their next product, and after, bald-faced lying to you.
When it comes to a lot of these, we see it from Jason Bateman in Ozark. We see it from Jeff Daniels. We see it from a lot of... Everybody's going to do their own kind of spinoff. And whether it's TV, whether it's a horrible movie, I use this example all the time with Antonio, is you take Tommy Lee Jones for Man of the House. And he does a horrible movie like Man of the House where he's in a house full of cheerleaders, but it's not going to really turned me off from it. Every actor at one point deserves the right to make something horrible and knowingly go into it thinking it's horrible. Because you take Tommy Lee Jones, there's no way he looked at that script saying, oh, I'm protecting a squad full of cheerleaders. This is going to be Oscar nomination. This is going to be a ton of recognition. No, it's a fun movie. So I think we hold a lot of these performers at a level to the point where we say, you've gotten to this point in your career, you have to stay at the level I expect you to. And there's some actors that just make stupid decisions on what they can really do. But when it comes to I'll use Jeff Daniels in his recent role. I can't remember the name of the show, but he does a fantastic job. And these miniseries and a lot of these things can catapult them back into some really fantastic theatrical roles because it does demonstrate their range. It does demonstrate their dramatic pieces of it. And they have the advertisement because if it's a great story, great performance, they got the Golden Globes to go to catapult them into some recognition. So you have one piece of resume building, you have another piece of just having fun with it because you've earned the right to. But if you take Martin Lawrence and Mama's House, that does not deserve the right because you're doing the same garbage that you've done year over year with your career. So to a point, it's opinion, but it depends on the actor and it depends on where you're at in your career on whether or not you've earned that right to make something mediocre just to kind of show a different persona of you.
I agree. Michael Caine famously said he never saw Jaws: The Revenge, but he can show you the house that he bought with the paycheck he got from it. And 5 years later, he made the Muppet Christmas Carol. Like, that clearly did not affect his career at all. I don't think that there's a like you said, Alex, there's a suspension of disbelief with the kayfabe where we just kind of expect these guys to push whatever movie they're hawking for this month, this quarter, whatever, however many movies they have this year. Like Chris Pratt's enthusiasm and bullshit for the Mario Brothers movie, I don't believe it for a second. I think they just went, Chris Pratt, you were in the Lego movie. That made a lot of money. We will pay you a lot of money to be Mario because we don't want to do an insensitive Italian stereotypical accent. And he went, okay. And then they just went, okay, here's some Mario facts. Just go for it. And they just rolled with it. And I mean, people have kind of soured on Chris Pratt because, yeah, he's kind of just become this weird golden boy for studios. Like, he just seems to be the middleman for everybody, I guess, where he just hits the right markers for middle America and then big cities as well. Famously, one of my favorite Futurama quotes, he gets the Midwest off their tractors. But everyone knows that actors are just there to do whatever they do. Like, unfortunately, not everyone can just be Ben Affleck, hello, darkness, my old friend, staring off into the distance during the Batman v Superman press tour. But I do think that when an actor is genuinely excited for something, I think that does resonate. But it's also something where I think only people like us who are invested in these things actually see that side of things, because my mother-in-law probably watches Good Morning America every morning, and whenever they have someone on to promote the next movie, even she can kind of be like, they're just saying the same thing that everyone says about the project. Oh, well, it was a really interesting project that just the character journey and the struggles that they endure. Like, you're just saying the things. So I don't think that really affects anything that general audiences have towards actors, because George Clooney was in a bad movie. Well, I'm never going to see a George Clooney movie again. Anna Faris. What was it? Anna Kendrick? Yeah. Anna Kendrick. She was in Noelle on Disney Plus, and that was like a big Disney Plus launch. Like, oh no, the Academy Award nominee will never again be an Academy Award nominee. I'm pretty sure she'll get her Oscar at some point in her career. Maybe they'll make it a reclamation tour though, because Noelle was pretty bad.
Well, even think back to your favorite actor. Think back to your favorite actress. How many did you see in a really horrible role that you just said, that's it, I am never going to see another movie with that actor or actress again? It really, Are you both looking it up right now?
I'm trying to.
I mean, people thought Arnold Schwarzenegger's career was over after Batman and Robin. But
Yeah.
honestly, I think that's the most fun he's ever had. He may not come out and say it because people hate that movie, which I love it. I unabashedly love Batman and Robin. But I think he was having fun. He was hamming it up, getting to do all the best one-liners in the world. What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. Who doesn't love that line?
Shame on you, Josh. Shame on you.
Oh, I accept no shame.
No, but I agree. There's a level of silliness to it where, kind of the point, these actors have fun with the material to the extent they do what they can. But when it comes to them pumping the movie, what do you expect them to do? It's a movie they're getting a paycheck for. They're signing contracts with the studios. They have to go on a promotional tour. It's in what they're doing, promotional tour. They have to go out and pump this movie out. And whether or not you take it with a grain of salt or you actually really buy into what they're saying, it has to be left up to the audience. At the end of the day, does a trailer look good to you? Do you like the actor, the cast, the actress, whatever it may be? Do you like the director? You're going to go see it. If you're waiting for Good Morning America, Jimmy Fallon, or whatnot to promote the movie, and that convinces you to go see it, it doesn't happen that way. So you've already made your decision after the initial trailer or who you see is in it. So to me, I think it's going to be the amount of time and money spent on the trailer to really hook that audience in. It's not going to be what the actor says to it. I mean, unless you're really that gullible to say, okay, that Big Mama's House 14 looks really good. So Martin Lawrence said so.
Listen, Stephen Baldwin burned me with Biodome. I've never seen another film of his.
For me, it was Viva Rock Vegas.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm sorry, no one can top Rick Moranis's Barney. He may not have been stout, but man, did he fit that. I don't care what anyone says. Justin, if you and Antonio want me on for Back to the Balcony, I need to talk about the Flintstones movie.
Oh,
that's
no.
That's one I call dibs on.
Oh, I'm there.
It's going to be on the list. Just
I love
heads
that
up.
movie. The fact that Stonehenge was a restaurant, chef's kiss, perfect.
Just remember coming home from the movie McDonald's with my glasses.
Oh man, I miss those. And maybe that's another thing that's missing is like the promotional marketing for shit sucks nowadays. Like you don't get those awesome Lord of the Rings, Batman Forever glasses and the Flintstones glasses. Like there's so many memes of like break out the good glasses. We have company coming over and it's the Batman mugs from Burger King and McDonald's. Like you don't get that anymore. Like if you do, it's like legitimately through the theme parks that own those properties and they're like $100.
No, we just get popcorn buckets we can fuck.
Whoa. Well, I was going to make a point and then you had to say it. Now it's gone off the rails. Thanks, Alex. Well, it kind of goes into what we said in the first episode is creating that experience because as I said in the first one, we don't have that anymore. And that's an absolute 100% when it comes to the experience. It's not just the theatrical experience. It's everything leading up to it. If we remember as we're kids going and collecting the glasses or getting the McDonald's toy, the cross marketing of it. But if my daughter's passionate about it, like I said in the first one, we don't have that. So I have to create that and really make sure that we validate the passion that she found in what she just viewed. So I think creating that experience is part of the responsibility now because no company wants to spend the money to really put in that quality cross merchandising that we saw in the 80s and the 90s.
I agree with that because that leads me to something I actually wanted to mention. The past few months, my theater experience has greatly improved by avoiding our local AMC. The seats are run down, the lights, the marquees outside aren't even lit. There's maybe like 2 employees that are working there. You can tell they just don't care about your experience anymore. I enjoy going to the Beloit Theater because it's a simple menu, that popcorn smell. I've mentioned it before. The leather seats, they recline. There's nice and space. They respect your time by saying, hey, we're going to have 10 minutes of trailers. And the credits roll at this time. It's on your ticket. And the seats are new. The screen's beautiful. The sound's great. They even have a thing about like, listen, you're going to get like 1 warning if you're being a jackass patron. But when you mention the cups, there is a theater I've been to twice. and I plan on going again. It's called Flick's Brew House. It's up in Madison. They have a few chains, and it is a place where you can order food and alcohol, and they do special showings. And the showing that one of the showings I went to was the Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny one, which the food was great. We saw a movie, but the other one was they did Clue. And they had a theme going. You showed up. They had like a little documentary happening before the movie. They don't play trailers or like the guest and trivia game thing. They play things related to the movie. So they were playing for Indiana Jones. They were playing like some old like 30s, 40s serials, which were cool. For Clue, they were playing like a little documentary thing of people talking about it. They had a little giveaway at the beginning where you won like a Clue board. With your ticket came a Clue glass, which is actually really nice glass. When I picked it up and it had heft to it, I was like, "Whoa, okay, this isn't a cheap knock." The print is actually glazed, so one run through the dishwasher won't destroy it. And they had like a little Clue themed thing. You could get like mustard dip something or other, Mrs. Plum, whatever. And it made for a fun experience. You were seeing this movie that was upgraded a bit for it with a audience that was passionate about seeing this movie. And they have nice seats. The way they serve you is that you hit a little button and they give you a pen and paper. So if it's during the movie, you just hand the slip to the server who runs off. They duck between seats. You have a little table and everything at your desk, as your chair. And it makes it an experience that I enjoy going because I know that I'm surrounded by people who are impassioned to see this movie, and a theater environment that respects the moviegoer for making their time to come here and spend money.
So I'm going to kind of go on the opposite end of it, even though I get that piece of it. Now, when we take the concept of picture, seat, sound, and making the experience more comfortable, making it more enjoyable, more relaxed, my favorite theater is there's a theater called the Neptune in Seattle that you sit down in these uncomfortable chairs, but you walk into the lobby with the most brilliant, moldy smell of popcorn, dots, red vines, old-fashioned candy. But the staff is just completely incredible. But when you walk into the theater, you do feel like you're going to get shanked at one point during the 2-hour runtime. But here's what's so special on why I love this theater is because it's intimate to the point where if you have maybe it's 25, 30% filled on a good day, you see a comedy, you see a scary movie, you hear every laugh, you hear every jump scare from not necessarily the screen, but the audience. And that amplifies the experience. I was in an RPX movie, I can't remember which one over the last couple of months. One was a comedy, one was a scary movie. You couldn't hear the laughter from the audience, both fairly filled. You couldn't hear the jump scares. You couldn't hear anything from the audience. You're relying on what you're being presented. And that heightens the stakes on what you're really watching on screen to really be very critical. To me, the audience reactions helps that experience, and that's what I think is really lacking here. To me, give me that theater that is run down, feel like I'm going to get murdered in. As long as I can hear the reaction from the audience, it helps with that experience. You hear somebody laugh, you're going to laugh along with them, and that's what really adds to the fun factor to it. So to me, if I have the choice between an IMAX RPX or a D-Box theater, even though D-Box is extremely fun, I will always, hands down, go to the mom and pop theater that has the old-fashioned candy with the staff that cares, with an audience that equally is enjoying the movie as much as you are.
One of my favorite movie-going experiences that I can remember, I went to what's no longer in the I believe is in Love's Park for us. They had a dollar theater that just obviously that's where all the older movies go, movies that have been out for like 40, 60, 90 days, and they're like about to get released into home video. I remember so vividly going to see Independence Day with like my sisters and their boyfriends. That came out in 96, so I would have been like 11. But I remember that entire theater erupting in cheers when Randy Quaid unalives himself, sacrifices himself into the mothership or the one ship. And it was just such a, I don't think I'd ever even experienced that before. in a movie theater. I mean, I was only 11 years old, so I hadn't seen too many movies like that. But it was just so surreal to have people cheering at the screen in that moment. Whereas the first time I saw it with my dad, like I enjoyed it and I had fun, but it wasn't anything that I really experienced where even when I saw the Star Wars re-releases, like there were familiar moments where people were going back to relive their childhood and people weren't cheering. Like it was just people were experiencing it, which still was very cool. The only downside to any of those re-releases that I would really say that I remember is Return of the Jedi, if I remember, came out around Easter Sunday that year when I think it was like January, February, March, April, or something like that. January, February, March, they did like a month to month release, and someone decided to bring their baby with them and they just never left the theater. And so the baby was just crying the entire time. So like it kind of ruined the experience for everyone because everyone's like, take that goddamn baby out of here. That doesn't belong in a movie theater. But I haven't had too many of those moments. Like I think the most recent one would have been Endgame when Captain America picks up Mjolnir, and just like that entire final sequence. But even like Infinity War, I remember most of my theater just being in awe. And I think I was the one that broke the silence for Infinity War when Spider-Man started going away. And I was like, oh shit. And I think that's when everyone else kind of like felt permission to be like, what the fuck is happening? Because I was like, Black Panther's going to survive. He just had $1 billion movie. Spider-Man's not going anywhere because he's Spider-Man. It gives him an excuse to age him up for the next movie if there's any kind of time jump. And nope, they got rid of both of them. And I was just like, what the fuck is happening?
Well, and I think that's part of the problem, though, is because when you mention Marvel or Star Wars, that one is almost guaranteed a reaction because of the fan base on it. But like, when was the last time we heard a reaction from an audience not surrounding a Disney or famous IP? It's rare that we get that now, because we just bank on that reaction of that. It's again kind of the quote Martin Scorsese on making these theme park rides where it's a roller coaster. You're yelling, you're reacting to it. But there are a lot of movies out there that deserve the same reaction, but they don't get enough recognition or the same audience that we see. There's a movie, Thelma, I saw the other day that I just reviewed that is absolutely hilarious. It's brilliant. It's heartfelt. That if that was in a sold out crowd, we would have heard an uproar. And it doesn't get that. So we lose that experience from it because it doesn't have that big budget fan base to it. And that's kind of where I think we lose a little bit of a lot of these audiences really helping with that experience.
And Thelma is one where I thought I would have swore, given the premise of it, that would have been a streaming movie. I didn't see anything about that movie until I heard your review. And then I looked it up and was like, my mom would have loved this movie. And so I showed her the trailer and she's like, when is that? Where can I watch it? I'm like, the theater? And she's like, I don't go to the theater anymore.
Yeah, like I loved being in the Clue because it was a bunch of people who were there to see that and we were laughing at things and I hadn't seen it in years, and especially seeing it on a big screen instead of the TV at home, I was seeing more little nuanced character reactions and quirks, and this set is just gorgeous. I was pleasantly surprised when we went and saw A Quiet Place 3 that everyone went quiet once the world turned to silence. That there is still, the audience can still be respectful and have reactions. Yes, we all jumped when there was that terrible jump scare. But I don't always experience that depending on, because I feel like some movies are not, people are almost seeing them ironically because, oh, it's the horror movie release of the week, so let's go and just mock it relentlessly. I mean, Lord knows Josh and I went to go see Cocaine Bear because it's kind of ironic that this would be a hit big movie that they're,
Yeah, it was a meme.
It was a fun time. Was it as good as it should have been? No, but it was a fun time, and that was a packed theater. And I love that because I love that we're watching this movie, and as those horror trailer after horror trailer after horror trailer was airing, I could hear the group in front of me going like, "Nah, that one looks like it sucks. Oh, you guys see that? That looks too scary for me, dude. You're just seeing that on your own." I love that. I love that theater experience. But I'm looking at like some of the movies that have come out recently, and Maxine is the end of a trilogy, and I don't think that's aired more than like for a week anywhere around us. Like, how can I go and see this film that it was starring Mia Goth if they've released like 3 movies in like 18 months?
I would not have known that was a trilogy. Like that makes the triple X in the middle make more sense. But
Yeah.
I just thought it was like they're being clever and trying to make a meme out of something. But I mean, that I guess I'm just hitting the hill or sooner than you guys are on some of these things. But like, I think one of the things that is really missing is just the idea that studios they're not willing to take risks. Like Justin, you made a point of when was the last time we had people cheering in a theater or having fun in a theater for a movie that wasn't based on a popular IP. And like, I was going through my Rolodex and I mean, people had fun in Transformers, but like, again, based on an IP, first time it was ever made into a live action anything, but that is the first movie I can think of. And then there's like Pirates of the Caribbean, which is just like a flash in the pan sort of thing where it's like, there's no reason that movie should be as fun as it is, but it is. And it worked and it spun off 4 extra movies because of it. I think maybe The Matrix is the last one I can really think of for an original idea, which you could argue original idea based on rumors and everything. I do think that this kind of leads us back to the idea of the budget, because studios in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s, yes, they would have their big blockbusters, especially in like the 60s and 70s. They would have their 4-hour epic movies. You used to have movies that would come out and they would have a 30 to 60 million used to be the blockbuster budget. But they would have in like from like 2000 on, after The Matrix, I think kind of is what broke the bank. You would have movies that had that 30 to 60 million dollar budget and they would be considered like indie style movies, but then they would go on to gross 200, 300, 400 million dollars. And that would essentially cover the budget for every other movie for the rest of the year. And now studios are just so adverse to taking any of those risks, or they'll just, here's $10, we'll throw it on streaming. Like there's a weird mix up in understanding risk reward, where they think Ryan Gosling was in Barbie that made $1 billion. It's clearly not the script, the lead actress, or the director. Ryan Gosling was the male lead. Therefore, he's probably a big part of why that made money. Let's pay him a bunch of money to be in this movie, which like, I know logistically that doesn't make sense because The Fall Guy released 10 months after Barbie did. But I'm sure there was some kind of, that was a similar logic. Like, oh, he's been cast in this. That's probably going to make money. He's the male lead. Let's throw more money at him.
So, Paranormal Activity, $15,000 budget, box office $194 million. So that is no big names, brilliant marketing. And this went on to make a franchise that got, again, crappier down the road, but that's when more money came in, where they had to stop their actual thinking of how to make something engaging and how to make things creative and how to execute. When money's involved, the creativity lacks. And we saw that from numerous franchises as budgets get big. But you're absolutely right. So if we can take all these independent movies, it takes one to strike gold. And I use Paranormal as an example because it's the best one. When it takes 15,000 and it makes millions that it did, that is a great payday for studios. But they want almost the stubborn bragging rights to make the biggest movie of the year, not the best profit margin. And that's where we make the mistake, and studios' greed really show and shine through. So to me, I think if they can make 10 small budget movies, they need one to really make millions. And they have a better stakes to that than making 5 multi-million-dollar movies and just cross our fingers and hope that succeed, because more often than not, they don't make as much as anticipated after the marketing budget.
It's not the same thing as $15,000 going on to make almost $200 million. But I don't know why this triggered for me, but I remembered very vividly, maybe it was the Transformers, because I do very vividly remember that the Cloverfield, the initial Cloverfield trailer that just presented itself like this weird found footage frat party sort of thing. Like, oh, we're throwing a going away party for our guy here. And all of a sudden it ends with the Statue of Liberty head getting thrown. They basically just play out the first like 20 minutes of the movie over the course of a 2-minute trailer. Budget of $25 million, which means they probably spent 40 to 50 or a total of 40 to 50 million dollars in between budget and marketing, which it was a brilliant marketing campaign because the first trailer didn't even tell you the name of the movie. It was just like found footage and everyone's like, what is this? They're like, oh my God, what is this? And it ended up making 172 million globally, which like not a bad return. You tripled the investment essentially by, if you do the double the cost budget with marketing. And plus God knows how much money they made on home video release. And like, who knows what that paid for in the future with other projects that Cloverfield brought in for, I think it was Paramount. Yeah, it was Paramount. So like, and I think that's probably what solidified J.J. Abrams to getting Star Trek as well, which maybe that was already in production because I think that released in 2009. But it's one of those examples that we can come up with where it's like, look what you did with $25 million and you almost quadrupled your budget or your profit. Why can't we keep doing this instead of it needs to be recognizable brands? We can't risk $25 million when we can throw that $25 million extra into reshoots for a streaming show.
I don't know. That is why we need to be the heads of studios. Sundance, it appears that they will be buying Paramount Plus. They already have 3 CEOs. I suggest the 3 of us to replace them. What can we do with that ghost money, Josh, do you think?
Biodome 2.
Nope.
I propose funding the Pauly Shore, Richard Simmons biopic.
Oh. Well, so.
Or Son-in-Law 2.
Oh my God.
I support both.
How about a chairman of the board too? We need more Carrot Top.
Don't you dare put Pauly Shore in the same category. I will go with still in the army. Still in the army now.
Fine. My last offer. This is what we'll do. Our first act is Paramount heads, the 3 of us. Encino Man 2.
I'll allow it.
Okay.
That still baffles me that hasn't been a thing yet because that's like a guarantee viewer build the resume and build the audience sequel. So it shocks me that hasn't been a thing yet.
I'm still shocked that the bully from Encino Man is not what's his face from 90210.
He's not?
No, he's I found this out. I was doing a rewatch of the Gilmore Girls like 5 years ago. And I don't know why, but I decided to look up the guy that plays Luke's brother-in-law. I was just like, why does he look familiar? He's this pudgy, loudmouth guy, but he looks familiar. It's Matt DeLuise. He plays TJ in Gilmore Girls. He only shows up in 13 episodes, but like he just looks really familiar. But like, and who am I thinking of from 90210? Melrose.
He's also in my top 5 worst hated movies of all time.
My Gilmore Girls guy?
Yep.
What movie?
I'll leave that to you.
Well, now I got to pull his IMDb back up. We're derailing ourselves here because I have to look up Michael DeLuise, Master of Disguise.
100%.
He plays a businessman. He's also in Wayne's World and Sequest 2032. He's just a character actor, but yeah, like I could have swore he's the guy from Melrose Place or Beverly Hills 90210. I don't know who it is, but yeah, I could have swore it was him, but no, it's Michael DeLuise who plays the bully in Encino Man, and that kind of blew my mind because it was like, how does he go from being the handsome bully dude from Encino Man to being this pudgy, loudmouth New Yorker guy in Gilmore Girls? Like, I know time is a bitch, but what the hell?
It's called range. So Josh and I have been dominating this conversation with things we want to discuss. What is something that you would like to bring to the table?
The only thing I just want to kind of bring up is just the overall rant of frustration. Even though I understand the greed, I understand the business, I understand why things aren't going to change. But to me, I say it on my show quite often, is I see more movies that surprise me in the smaller budget and the smaller independent that I would have never seen if I didn't do this show, more than I'm impressed with, say, big box office. To me, to really change this vision, this industry, and even to an extent change the way people go to movies and the way movie theaters run, is to have these small independent movies with substance that really make somebody value their time walking out versus I'm going to get a lot of shit for this, but theme park rides that, you know what, you'll watch, it's fun while you're watching it, but by the time you get home, you don't remember 90% of the plot points that happen in a movie. You struggle to kind of see beyond the special effects of what happens. There's a lot more to take, and this is what drives me nuts, is the culture. We always talk movies as this is our culture, and now they're turning into absolute theme park experiences where there is really nothing you take away from it. So during this holistic conversation, we talk about small budgets. We talk about, we've talked about in a couple episodes before of actors that really, do they make movies? Do they really make the movie? Do they really deserve the paychecks that they do? So to me, I've been more impressed with a lot of unknowns than I have with a lot of the current performers that we've seen in movies. So there is the nuggets there to really redefine how we see movies and almost do a reset on movies by adding a lot of these movies that are really brilliant, that do hit streaming, that are under the radar, that even streaming platforms won't advertise. When they go to theaters, this is what I think will reset it by impressing people that go. But it will never happen unless we have 3 to 4 movies each week really hit theaters to give moviegoers the option to see these movies. But it's always interrupted by the big movie that everybody needs to see. And that's what really drives me nuts. As I sit alone in a movie theater of Velma, I see a bunch of people walking into the summer blockbuster, and it always hurts my heart a little bit when I'm walking out of a movie that's that good and nobody will know it.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've walked into any of my theaters now, and I'm the only person there for until like 2 minutes into the trailers, and then there's like 2 other people that show up. And that used to be, again, banging my boomer drum, that used to be so rare to find a movie where you could get an empty theater in. Like there used to always be at least like that one family or that one older couple that would always wait 3-4 weeks after a movie had come out, and then they would go to the theater to go see it. And like we talked about it a little bit, where studios are now just dumping stuff onto streaming if they don't have a favorable opening weekend. I think A Quiet Place Day 1 has already been confirmed to be releasing on VOD at the end of July. It's been in theaters. It could theoretically still be in theaters in some places. Maybe they're just dumping it because they don't expect a huge return after the opening weekend. They expect a big drop off. Plus you have 2-3 big movies. Despicable Me 4 opened to $150 some million this weekend. And then you've got Deadpool 3 coming out soon. And then you've also got, what's the other, Twisters coming out, which again, that feels more like a meme movie, like similar to Cocaine Bear, but it also just, it reeks of the Jurassic World producers nonsense on there. But it feels like it's a movie that's going to probably take away from screens as well as box office takes. So like, why not try and milk as much money as you can off of VOD? But kind of like going back to what you were saying, Justin, about giving small time directors a chance and everything, like in this hypothetical world where we're the heads of Paramount or A24 for the matter, like, if it's not a Robert Eggers movie coming out from A24, you don't really hear about it anymore. Like he's become their golden boy. And A24 used to be at least the studio that was like, we're still producing quality product. We're still producing stuff that directors have a vision for. It's not just like, we need someone to tell the story of the first time someone put fuzz on a tennis ball, whatever it is. Like, oh, we revolutionized the game. It's something that I do think the machine is starting to kind of eat up A24 a little bit, because it just feels like Robert Eggers is the guy bringing in the money now because he's found that niche of quality, low budget, high return horror, action, thriller kind of movies. And it's the only thing that they're really pushing right now. Like, oh, we're the studio that makes those weird horror movies that everyone really enjoys. The other thing I really want to say quickly, I really wish studios didn't, I'm trying to find the right way to phrase this. Studios fishing for influencer reactions and positive influencer reactions, as well as test audience scores, those need to go away. Like if I were running a studio and we were screening a movie for quality, like, oh, we're presenting this movie, the visual effects aren't done, but please let us know what you have thoughts about, like the story, what makes sense, what doesn't, all that sort of stuff. I would invite people like us. Like, I'm not trying to say, hey, Disney, give me money so I can screenwrite for you or screen doctor for you. I'm just trying to say there's a really good documentary on Frozen 2 on Disney Plus. It hits a lot of the stuff that I really enjoy. Like, I teared up listening to them score Into the Unknown. Like, they have a little bit of Indira Menzel in the studio, as well as her in the booth as they're putting the score to the music. And like hearing that orchestra come in and bring even more life to that song, it's beautiful. But then they also cut to the test audience where they have families with their kids and they don't even have the movie completely finished yet. Like, they didn't know who the voice was until like 3 weeks before the movie was supposed to hit theaters. And thanks to digital editing and everything, like they were able to get it done. But if they ran it through a test audience with the final concept that the voice is the mother, you would have guys like us being like, how does that make sense? And like, there's nothing foreshadowing any of this. And Elsa's happy now that she's found someone that's like her, but she's the person she's found. Like, it's a decent moral, but it makes no sense to anything you've been building up to this. And it doesn't work really. Like, it could be the voice showing her mother, but no, they're saying the voice is the mother. And it's like, how, why? And those are little things that people pick up on, and it really diminishes rewatch value because you're not foreshadowing anything. So like, if you're not putting in those little breadcrumbs for people to find on second viewings, what does it add? And I think that's a big problem for movies nowadays, is that it's built around general audience test screenings, which, like, yeah, you want to appeal to general audiences, but you also want people to walk away from your movie thinking about it. Nowadays, studios have openly admitted to making movies that people can passively watch. Like, oh, people are going to be on their phones. So like, we don't need to worry about this or that. And that, like, yes, that's a societal problem as much as it is a movie making problem. But if you give that inch to being like, they're going to be on their phones, like, why do we need to do this? Why do we need to make it look good? Why do we need to clean up this green screen shot? You're just begging for people to bash the quality of your film. And I think that's something that also needs to go away, because if you're making a better quality product, people are going to pay better attention to it.
100%. And that goes into the screenwriters and the directors too. There are many times where I'll rewatch something and you can tell the story is engulfing when I put my phone down, where I really want to pay attention to it. And that's usually during a second viewing, where this story is really getting better with the second viewing, where I'm paying attention to a lot of the different nuggets. And it's kind of going to the point where that's what's going to really save movies now, even though it's easy just to skip past it and to make something so generic that it's easy and doesn't take any creativity. But it takes skill. But you're going to get a more memorable experience that's going to stay with our culture if you are thinking about it way after it's done. And that is great storytelling. Godzilla Kong, I forgot about it the minute I got home because there was nothing to it. But I
completely forgot that Godzilla suplexed Kong. Like there was so many other things going on, but like the internet came out of that movie and they were like, Godzilla suplex Kong is the best movie ever. Like I completely forgot it. Like that was one thing that like completely slipped my mind. Like there's so much other stuff going on, like good and bad. And it is just like, that's the one thing the people latched onto. But to your point, like, yeah, I walked out of it and I just like completely forgot half the movie.
100%. And there's movies that just stay with me, and we don't get that anymore. And I can ask anybody right now and say, tell me a movie that you can think about right now that emotionally affected you, either in a sad, happy, or silly way. And it will be very difficult for them not to give me something generic that has nothing to do with emotion, but a CGI spectacle. Because it's easy, because it's the most recent thing that they've seen. But there is nothing recent that will really tap into the emotion and really tell a story and stay with you. And that's the issue that we have. And we'd like to place it on movie theaters and we'd like to place it on studios. But at the end of the day, it's all about the story and how it's executed. And that's the problem we have with what's being released to theaters, is there's nothing of substance really coming out to really stay with the youth, the middle-aged public, or the elderly. There is nothing out there for anybody to really hold on to, and give it another decade, and that is where we're going to really see where our culture is really going to falter if we don't have this kind of stuff that really stays with us, that when we grew up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, that really did have a majority of these movies of substance. And we can speak to that. We don't have that now in our youth, and we don't have that now in our culture. And that's going to be an issue going into the next 10, 20, 30 years.
I think a large part of where a lot of this creatively bankrupt process is coming from is that more and more people, like, Justin, I believe you're Gen X technically. I'm technically a millennial. Alex, I think you're technically Gen X as well.
How dare you? I'm an elder millennial.
I'm sorry, you're Gen Pepsi.
Thank you. Where's my Jet Pepsi?
We only have Crystal in stock. Crystal Pepsi. I want to clarify, Crystal Pepsi. But like, I think that through the last, and Alex, this is something that I think you really will latch onto as far as a thought goes. I think people have become more protective of their creative rights, because like Kyle Higgins, who I openly love, that guy, like he is the coolest dude ever. And he owns all of his major stuff. He owns Cowl. He owns Radiant Black. He owns Hadrian's Wall. He was in the process of making a Hadrian's Wall movie, it's this really cool space noir murder mystery. And they were literally like, he announced like, hey, this movie is in pre-production, essentially. Like, we just need to dot some I's and cross some T's. And unfortunately, one of those T's became an I, and the deal fell through because Kyle couldn't get the creative control he wanted. Like, the studio kept encroaching, but because he owns the rights to those movies, or that script, and it's not just an idea house like Marvel or DC that can just be like, you work for us, anything you submit to us is owned by us, even though you came up with the idea. And Disney's like just the worst at that sort of shit. But because he's producing so much of his stuff through Image and he owns everything that he produces, he can walk away from any deal. And it's not like anyone, I think maybe more creators are latching onto those. I'm going to retain my rights and I'm going to be choosy about what we produce. It's kind of like the Mary Poppins idea, but no one's getting sweet talked by Walt Disney with some menthols. I think overall, maybe the main issue is that people, the really big creative people who maybe want to make movies, they're not being given the freedom to make the movies the way they want to, because everyone needs to be able to make the same crackerjack movie nowadays, or it needs to fit into the same kind of square pegs. And I don't think studios are willing to take those risks anymore without being able to own those intellectual properties. And maybe more creative people are just backing off. Cause like, again, sorry to be going on another like 5-minute rant. Ricky recently started, or I should say last year, started reading the Sarah J. Maas books. And she has somewhat famously in the Sarah J. Maas Cirque fandom, she has become very difficult to work with because she is a producer, an executive producer on the show that they're trying to produce. And she's like being very choosy about who's being cast as what, because she owns these characters. And it's one of those things that like how many millions of dollars have they already plugged into this by buying the rights to be able to make this show based off these characters in these books. And she's just shitting on everyone that comes in to audition for the role because she can't find her right character.
I think that could be a small portion of it, because Hollywood has for a very long time pushed writers around, whether that's the original authors, comic book authors, or the writers themselves. Carrie Fisher talked about it. Carrie Fisher was famously earned a lot of her money as a script doctor. She touched up tons and tons of scripts, punched up for dialogue and plot. I believe When Harry Met Sally was one of them, where she fixed a bunch of stuff. But script doctors don't get production credits and stuff like that. They come in, punch up a script, and get paid a ton of money. You're talking $250,000 to millions, depending on where the movie is with production and how much you contribute to it. And she got paid a lot, and her hand is in a lot of great scripts in the 80s and 90s. She got out of that, not because she ran out of ideas, but because the studios started saying, well, read the script and let me know what you think. And once she got burned once or twice by them taking her ideas and giving it to somebody cheaper, they stopped. And then there's other people who are script doctors who say that they've stopped completely, because what they do now is for like the Transformers and Marvel and other places, they now have what's called a writer's room, where they'll get one writer to do the script, and then they toss the script to all the other writers and say, how would you fix this? So there's not a person who's in charge of the vision. They're now saving money by getting 10 people to throw ideas and then do a rewrite. You're not getting someone to carry that forward. Two of my favorite movies of the 90s, Jurassic Park and Twisters, were by the author Michael Crichton. Michael Crichton also created ER. You have so many of the plot points of that first movie. Yes, David Coombe, he is the co-author on the script, and he is doing the new Jurassic World Empire, whatever the heck the movie is. But I'm going to be very curious to see what Jurassic World 4 is. Is it close to, can it bring the resonance of the original Jurassic Park? Or how much of that script was, I'm Michael Crichton, I wrote the book, I'm giving you the template for the movie. Spielberg, what are you doing with it? And writers deserve the chance to protect their stuff. George R.R. Martin with Game of Thrones, he talked about, he said, if you're an author, always take the free lunch, because they'll fly you out there, they'll buy you lunch, they'll wine and dine you, and he listens to them. And so many of those meetings of him listening to them, where they're talking about like, oh, we're going to give you this much money, just sign over everything. And he's like, okay, what did you like about the book? Oh, well, we want to turn this into a trilogy. Ned Stark's obviously the hero. We can't wait for him to triumph at the end of the third movie. It's like, ooh, you never finished the first book there, did you, son? Authors deserve the right to protect their stuff. They also deserve the right to say no. And I am blessed Sarah J. Maas for being able to say no, because too many writers, I don't like that they sell their works for the dump truck of money and then wait for it, and then 5-6 months down the line after the movie's come out and not done well, they crap on it. Yes, but you still accepted that dump truck. Protect your work and have a say in it. And bless Sarah J. Maas for that. Bless George R.R. Martin and authors who are willing to get their piece of the pie and protect their works.
Just because you brought up Jurassic World 4, I think in our group chat with you, me, and Justin, you shared Scarlett Johansson's quote about how she's like, just get me in the movie. You can have me eat, and I just want to be part of the franchise. Like, you're fucking lying. Like, shut up. I love you, ScarJo. You're beautiful. Look at this one. Look at that one. Hilarious. Shut up. Like, don't talk to me about Jurassic World and your enthusiasm for the role. Like, you just wanted that franchise check again, and that's fine. Get paid, get your money, and get out. But Jesus, like, temper it down. Like, no one is excited. No one is excited for this movie.
Hey, Lord knows if Hollywood comes about any of the things I'm working on, and I see that dump truck and it's the right thing, I will pimp that movie, that TV series. Well, oh, they've respected the work. It's amazing. It's fantastic. It's going to be great.
But Alex, they turned Nosferatu into a werewolf? How can you say they respected the source material?
Well, my next project, it's going to be a little bit closer.
Didn't they also give him webbed feet for some reason?
Well, that's because of the swimming scene. You didn't understand that our vampires are different. They sparkle.
I don't know. I'm gonna go on the. I'll admit it. I'm excited for the new Jurassic World because you know what? There's nothing more I look forward to than finding something that I'm passionate. It reminds me of asking when I was single that beautiful girl out, and finally getting the yes, probably out of just sympathy, and then never being called again. You get that excitement, and then you're just disappointed and just hurtful, and you cry into your pillow. So I am excited to cry into my pillow after Jurassic Park 4. And just for the record, I think when it comes to adaptions, E.L. James should get a second shot on controlling the 50 Shades of Grey movie. She was cheated.
Justin, when you're waiting for that phone call and it doesn't come back from that beautiful girl, would you say you're blue inside and out? Your entire world is blue?
Sorry, Alex, I can't.
I think we lost Justin. We'll have to go look at his blue house with a blue window and see what happens.
I'm back. I hate
you. We should have turned this into a skit and had Antonio hate us as well. This is a subject that can be talked about for days because we can present all sorts of critiques and criticisms as well as maybe a few solutions. But the end of the day, we are not the CFOs, CEOs, and CCOs yet. But overall, I think most people can agree that the movie-going experience has soured a bit only because it all does feel very cookie cutter. And I think that's maybe one of the reasons why, at least Alex and I, Justin, you can feel free to be contrarian about it. But it's one of the reasons why, I think Deadpool and Wolverine feels like it might be a little different because Ryan Reynolds has his hand in so many different creative aspects of that film.
No, I agree. I think when you have control over something you're passionate about and you spent so many years prior trying to get this to life, I mean, that's a whole different story. So when your heart's in the right place, when you're making a movie, that's the kind of filmmakers we need to help revitalize the movie-going experience. And I think Deadpool and Wolverine is really going to be something different that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, and speaking of the passion, Mel Gibson made a movie passion for movie making and passion for a project. Justin, we'll talk about your honeypot, Sydney Sweeney, where Immaculate, it's maybe not a good movie, but it's something she was passionate about. She took Madam Web because it gave her an avenue to make Immaculate. It was a movie she auditioned for. It didn't end up getting made back in the day. And then she gained stardom through Euphoria and a little bit of a meme following with Madam Web, as well as a little bit more of a fandom with Anyone But You. And that gave her the clout to be able to go, hey, Immaculate, can I make this? And then, again, timeline for production doesn't exactly line up for all of this domino effect. But it was enough for Sony to be like, hey, look at all these things she has lined up, as well as working with us now. Maybe we let her make this movie.
And sometimes a bad movie can really skyrocket you to something else. I mean, Immaculate was a terrible movie, but you know what? She was passionate about doing it, and I was passionate about seeing her in a nun outfit. So, I mean, it's a win-win. But this is kind of the thing where you can be in a bad movie, but when you go from Anyone But You to Immaculate, the combination between good and bad, you almost get a curiosity going into her next movie of what you're going to get. So, I mean, right now, she's early in her career, my girl, that can take it somewhere. And I think when it comes to her performances, Immaculate, she did an okay job, just in a horrible movie. So that's where we zero in on how faithful you are to that performer. I gave it 1.5 stars. It's a horrible movie, but you know what? My baby did a good job.
And I think that's kind of where a lot of this lies too, though, is that the one avenue we didn't really touch on, which I think is also an elephant in the room alongside streaming, is content creation, YouTube, TikTok, which like that's maybe we do a part 3 and it's just all about like the effect of online content compared to movie making content, which like that's become a whole different thing. That's like how the 90s used to view TV to movies. Like TV was for the plebs and movie was the high caliber stuff. And now it's like, I'm a content creator, which like, yeah, you make a pretty good living if you can get found. But now it's like, I think even one of the more famous Let's Players had a cameo in the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. So like there is a little bit of a crossover happening. Whoops, about my mic. Hopefully that wasn't too bad. But I think, again, we could talk about this for another hour if we really wanted to, but we're pushing 90 minutes now. So we're going to wrap up. Justin, let everyone know where they can find you and on what podcasts.
So you can check me out on anywhere you listen to podcasts at The Movie Wire. You can follow me on my socials at Movie Wire Show. You can also check out the Cult-Worthy Cinema podcast and the Movie Wire team up, Back to the Balcony, that is now on YouTube.
Alex, who's doing our remix this week?
Jenny Nicholson, because damn it, Disney, why'd you claim copyright on her 4-hour video about your hotel
Did they really?
restaurant? Yes.
It's her own personal video, like for a defunct hotel.
Yep, but it got copyright struck because she included some of their advertisements for it, the videos, in her descriptions.
Rookie mistake, Jenny. You can't use anything. Wasn't some of it like D23 shit though? Like that's public.
Yeah, but that's the rumor. I believe it was confirmed that it was copyright struck. The rumor was it was because of the music and the advertisements of the D23 stuff would have been triggered the algorithm to copyright strike her.
Again, I don't feel like you can trigger the music because it's not mass produced.
Don't know.
That's so
seriously,
bizarre.
4-hour video, it's fantastic.
It is. I watched it in like 3 parts, and yeah, it's an amazing experience for something I was never going to experience myself. But don't forget to follow Justin on the Movie Wire as well as Back to the Balcony. And hey, Alex, did you know that I was on Between Two Pods with Slade?
Slade? Had you Between Two Pods?
Yeah, I was on there with him, and congratulations to Slade. If you don't know, you better go check out his socials because you need to send him a congratulations. But definitely check out Between Two Pods, as I am on there as well. Don't forget to join our Discord. I found out that the link was expired, so I have updated the link. Follow us on all social media platforms at Talking Smack Pod on Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, Hive Social, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Lonnie's website. Email us your thoughts, questions, reviews, comments, concerns at tsmackpod@gmail.com. Thank you to Leo Allen for the musical themes you're hearing right now, as well as Beppo for our original avatars, Retrorail Studios for our Ricky avatar. Please like, subscribe, rate, review on your podcatcher of choice, and most importantly, thank you, Justin, for being here. Thank you, Alex, for, as always, being here. Don't forget, love is a secondhand emotion, everyone, and take care.
Slade, congratulations on finally getting the Titans. The Teen Titans go.
If everyone wasn't asleep in my house right now, I'd be going, achie, achie, really bad.
Watch Star Trek. Sydney Sweeney's my love.
I hit the wrong button again. Alex, who loves T-Smack?
I love T-Smack.
Is it true?
It's true. I do.